some countries. So we need to remain vigilant. So the summit asked that member countries continue to put all the measures that have been taken since then. You know, today the issue as far as the COVID-19 is the vaccination. Most countries in ECOWAS have received doses of the vaccine for COVID, against COVID, from the COVAX initiative. Some member countries have procured vaccine themselves, but all member countries, in any case, have received COVAX vaccine, and they have started the vaccination program. So, despite that, vaccine supply availability is still a challenge. So the recent decision of the G7 on June 13 in Great Britain, where they promised and decided to give 1 billion doses of vaccine to developing countries, is something that, of course, we strongly hope will help improve the supply of vaccine in our region. We also spoke about, the summit spoke about the issue of the various decision-taking and implementation about those decisions. As you know, for example, the test of the PCR test for COVID is capped. It's been decided to be capped at $50 summit. So some countries, almost all countries do implement this decision, but some do not. So I think summit invited most of those countries to do not implement, to really do so. The security was also a big item on the agenda. And as you know, our region is facing a big security threat coming from a terrorist attack in the Sahel region, Sahel countries, but also, of course, we can see those security threats coming a little bit down to coastal countries. So, country insisted that we implement the security regional plan that was approved in September 2019. And the security in the Gulf of Guinea also is a big concern, you know, because today more than 40% of all piracy attacks in the world are in the Gulf of Guinea. And this has a tendency to increase the cost of insurance of all the ships that are coming in our region. And when the cost of insurance increases, it increases the cost of imported goods, and it impacts on the population. So this is something also that was discussed by summit, and head of state insisted and decided that really the decision taken to secure the Gulf of Guinea be really fully implemented. So maybe I will stop here, and then if you have questions, we can focus more on either those items or some of the points that I have mentioned. One important point that was discussed during the summit is the institutional reform of ECOWAS institution. You know, early January, we had an extraordinary summit of head of state and government, and by video conference. And during this extraordinary summit, they decided that ECOWAS institution need to go through an institutional reform, and they mandated His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is the President of the Republic of Ghana, but also the chair of ECOWAS authority, to really lead the reflection on this issue. So there was a long discussion on the result of those reflections that were discussed at the level of the ministerial committee, and the Council of Ministers also discussed that. And finally, I think what is really, I think, very impressive is that on a very difficult matter, I think President Akufo-Addo really was very, very successful in having all the member countries on board to have a new commission that will be put in March 22 to really, with 7 commissioners from the current 15 commissioners. That's an extremely big achievement. I really want to really thank really the President, the Chair of Authority, President Akufo-Addo, because it was not really, at the beginning, something easy to achieve. But today, all 15 member countries agreed to have the reform of the ECOWAS institution and to bring the number of commissioners from 15 to 7 commissioners. And I think that was, if there is one thing that we can take out of this summit, is this achievement and important decision that was made by the head of state and government. We also had, in terms of the single currency, a new roadmap and a new convergence pact, and the convergence pact that will cover the period 22-26, and the 27 being the launching of the ECO. So that's also a very big decision, because you recall, due to the COVID, the shock given by COVID, the head of state had decided to suspend the implementation of the convergence pact in 2020 and 2021. So now, they also decided that the ministerial committee should look at a new roadmap, a new convergence pact, to take into account the lesson that have been taken in that we could take from the previous pact. So I think this is now something that has been done. The ministerial committee has presented the result, the new roadmap, and the new convergence pact that was adopted by the head of state and government. There are some other issues that need to be solved, but I think this is a key achievement for the single currency. So I will stop here, and if you have questions, I'll be very pleased to take them.
So members of the media, you first identify your name, the media house, your report. Okay. All right.
So I can start. Okay. I'm Freight Delanyo Megashi with GH1 Television. I'd want to find out what holistic measures have been put in place to prevent escalation of the insecurity we have in the sub-region from getting into other countries. What holistic measures have been agreed on by ECOWAS to prevent the recent disturbances in the sub-region from getting into other countries? Thank you.
Can you repeat your question, please?
I'd like to know what holistic measures have been agreed on by ECOWAS to prevent further escalation of the disturbances we have in Mali and the other sub-region into other countries. Thank you.
Well, you know, the crisis in Mali started last year, in August 2020, when there was a coup d'etat. And as soon as the coup happened, ECOWAS reacted very quickly and sent a delegation there. ECOWAS reacted by nominating a mediator to facilitate the resolution of the crisis. And the ECOWAS chose the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, to be the mediator for Mali. And the mediator has done an excellent job. And in a meeting here in Accra in September 2020, if you remember, there was a roadmap that was approved for the resolution of the crisis in Mali. And a president for the transition was nominated with a civilian prime minister. Both of them were civilian. And a new government was set in place. And the process worked until last month. In fact, they made progress because they were able to work on the preparation for the next election, presidential and legislative. But unfortunately, during the course of this process, difficulty arose. And on the 24th of May, last month, there was another coup. So immediately after the coup, 2 days after that, ECOWAS sent a mission. The mediator was in Bamako to discuss with the people, the new authorities in Bamako, and there was also an extraordinary summit here in Accra on the 31st of May. I don't know if you recall. And during the summit, there were strong decisions were taken. If you recall those decisions, Mali was suspended from all ECOWAS institutions. And the summit asked that a new civilian prime minister be nominated, a new government be installed, and more importantly, summit required that the process of preparing the election, the timetable to have the next election, which was already decided by the transition team, transition president before, be maintained, so that election be held in February 2022 to return Mali to normal constitutional order. So the summit reviewed the situation, heard about the mediator, about the current situation, because the mediator immediately after the summit went back to Bamako on the 8th, 9th of June. So the summit listened to the mediator on its report. The summit noted that there were positive developments because indeed a new prime minister civilian was nominated, a new government has been put in place, and the new transition authorities clearly stated that they will stay on course and in line with what summit had decided, the roadmap in terms of timetable. So that was a positive development, but summit insisted that we need to follow very closely and monitor very closely the situation. And summit, the head of state decided to have a monitoring committee mechanism in place to ensure that we monitor and follow very, very closely the process so that we don't have the situation that we saw in May 24th. So I think this is important. Mali is a very important country for ECOWAS, and I think the commitment of the head of state is that Mali quickly return to its constitutional normal order, and also so that the stability of Mali is preserved. Because if the stability is not preserved in Mali, it will impact the whole region. You know, our region is really facing several terrorist attacks in Mali, in Burkina, in Niger, in North Nigeria. So we need to make sure that we do not add another problem on top of those terrorist attacks. So I think this is really what has been decided on Mali, and as the summit decided, they will really follow regularly and working very closely with the authorities, the transition authorities in Mali, to really help them prepare the election in the best condition. And the summit also called on all the international partners, the bilateral partners, to continue to support Mali during this transition period, because it's important that all of us, continue to be present and help Mali to really work in a very peaceful way in returning to democratic rules.
Any more questions?
Yes, thank you very much. The name is Justice Adoboy, report for the Xinhua News Agency. I have two short questions which are related. The first one is what the clear measures are that have been decided upon for economic recovery in the sub-region post-COVID. Now, the second one is related to it. When we hear about border closures by member states, it looks like defeating the purpose for establishing ECOWAS in the first place. Now, today we saw Guinea signing an agreement with Senegal to keep its borders open. What happens to the other neighboring countries that Guinea closed its borders with? And we also saw on television the president of Guinea-Bissau in a kind of protest. Was it related to being excluded from that agreement with Senegal? What is the way forward in keeping our borders open to ensure we achieve the purpose for ECOWAS? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very, very important question. I'm glad you asked those questions. In terms of the economic situation, As you know, of course, COVID, we started in 2020, has impacted all economy in the world. And our continent, the African continent, has also been impacted. And of course, our region has been impacted. So this summit was also gave the opportunity to look at the economic situation. And when we look at the situation in our region, we, on the basis of the information received, our economic growth in ECOWAS was a slight recession, almost less than 1% drop in the economic growth. And when the COVID started, preliminary estimates indicated that this recession will be even stronger, bigger. But with the latest information, the recession was smaller, as I said, less than 1%, which indicates that our economy in ECOWAS has been resilient in a sense. But the good news is that in 2021, and in 2020, I would like to say we performed better than the Africa average. So that's why I will say that our region has been resilient. In 2021, the situation is even better because the estimated growth in ECOWAS in 2021 is 3.4%, which is the level of growth before COVID. That means in 2019. It means that our economies are recovering slowly but surely from the recession due to COVID. And if you look at some of our key export commodities, most of them which witness a drop in the international market price have more or less recovered the loss of the price that they have witnessed. And so this is a good sign. But as some is indicated, it remains fragile. So we need to work harder. We need to do more. We need to do more in terms of public investment, private investment, in infrastructure, human capital. We need to invest in the people in terms of education, health. We need to create more, a better enabling investment for the private sector, because we need to increase the level of growth. Yes, we are going to have a positive growth in 2021, but we need to have a higher growth than what we are projecting. So it's better to have 3.4% growth than a recession, but we need to do more. And I think this is something that was also indicated by the summit, and I think all member countries will be working on that. On the border issue, you saw this morning at the opening ceremony the signature of the cooperation agreement on security between the Republic of Senegal and the Republic of Guinea. As you know, since last September 2020, border between Guinea and Sierra Leone, Guinea and Senegal, Guinea and Guinea-Bissau were closed. And the reason mentioned and indicated by Guinea for closing its border was security reason. So we, of course, have been engaging in intense discussion with Guinea, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and to see what we could do to solve this issue, because anytime border is closed, it impede trade flow, and when you don't have trade flow, people who produce cannot sell, they cannot export, they cannot import. So it is an economic, financial, and social cost which is important, and everybody loses on both sides of the border. Because as they say, trade is a basis of growth. To grow, you need to trade, because to trade, you need to produce. But if you produce and you can't trade, then it's difficult to sustain growth. So there has been a lot of work with the different parties, and I really would like to express really our gratitude to President Akufo-Addo again, because he really worked very hard, taking trip to Senegal, to Guinea, and he was able to really, in his last trip, to secure this agreement between both Guinea and Senegal, and that led to the signing of the protocol, this agreement that you saw today. Because remember, as I told you, Guinea closed its border because it invoked security issue. So the protocol that was signed today is about security cooperation. So it's important that the security situation is solved between both countries so that the trust is back, and that will, of course, lead to the opening of the border. Meanwhile, the border between Guinea and Sierra Leone was open in last February through direct contact and discussion between Guinea and Sierra Leone. So I think now Guinea-Bissau is the next one. Now that Sierra Leone is solved, now that Senegal, Guinea, we hope will be solved with the signing that we saw today. Now we are going to focus on Guinea-Bissau so that we can work and try to find a solution on the border between Guinea and Guinea-Bissau.
Okay, so one last question, please.
Good evening. My name is Nabil Ahmed Rufai. I report for China Global Television Network, CGTN, formerly CCTV. I have two questions, one on Mali. As you earlier said, the mediator, former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, has come out to give you the report. But then the suspension of Mali is still on. I want to find out, based on the report that he's given, are there any plans towards lifting the suspension? Secondly, I want to ask about COVID-19. Earlier this morning, when the chairman, President Nana Akufo-Addo, spoke, he said there are 3 countries in the West African sub-region that are trying to produce their own COVID-19 vaccines. That's Senegal, Nigeria, and Ghana. I want to know what kind of support ECOWAS is going to give to these countries so that as soon as possible, they are able to produce these vaccines, because we know that there is a slump in the supply of vaccines, and ECOWAS sub-region is really being affected in terms of rollout of the vaccination. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. On Mali, yes, as I indicated, the mediator, former President Goodluck Jonathan, gave its report, its assessment of the situation from the last trip he made in Bamako 10 days ago. And as I told you, there were positive developments because, again, the head of state after the coup required that a civilian prime minister will be named. And that was done 2 days before the arrival of Goodluck Jonathan in Bamako. Head of state required that the government, the civilian government, also be put in place. That was also done a few days after the visit of Goodluck Jonathan. Head of state also required that the roadmap that they have fixed in terms of timing and timetable of the election be adhered to. And there again, there were a decision from the authorities, the transition authority, that they will follow the roadmap. So when you look at the situation, there are positive development. But at the same time, the head of state indicated that those positive development, we need to follow that. We need to continue to monitor this development in terms of how they are implementing the order decision of the roadmap determined by the head of state. So at this stage, while they saw positive development, they thought that due to the fact that they want to see how firm is progress being made, the suspension is still maintained. It's still maintained. I think head of state want to be more reassured about the progress. Remember, the suspension were made in May 21st, so that's not even 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, there has been some positive development, and I think they noticed that, and they have, in fact, they welcome those positive development. But they did not want to be in a position where they will remove the suspension and then the situation goes off track. That's why they want to remain vigilant and follow, and that's why they also decided to set up a monitoring mechanism that has been decided. They decided to really firm up the process of the transition toward return to democratic processes. On the issue of vaccine, yes, you are right. In fact, when the COVID situation broke last year, there was an extraordinary summit to deal with COVID situation. And the issue of the supply of vaccine was discussed by the summit. And the supply in terms of being able to vaccinate the population. Now, at the time, there was no vaccine in the world. There was no vaccine. The only strategy to fight COVID was really the preventive measure. Mask, washing the hand, distance. That was the only thing people could do. We still have to continue to do that. But now we have vaccine. We have several vaccines that have been approved by the World Health Organization. So now some countries have bought directly vaccine. COVAX has provided vaccine. But even at the time, the head of state said, when vaccines are available, yes, we need to provide and get some vaccine, but we need also to reinforce research and production of vaccine in our region. And you know that we have an organization in ECOWAS, which is the West African Health Organization, that has been working very, very, very closely with member countries in dealing with the COVID situation, and have identified 3 countries in our region that have the infrastructure, because to produce vaccine you need an adequate infrastructure. So they have the basic infrastructure on which we could really rely on to work on the production of vaccine. And I think you mentioned Senegal, Ghana, and Nigeria. So and they are working on it with those countries to see how we can move in this direction, because we have to have the capacity and the capability to produce vaccine. As was indicated, yes, COVID was something that took all of us by surprise, but we need to be prepared not only for COVID, but also for future pandemic that might arise. So we need to have the infrastructure to be capable of producing very rapidly vaccine, which means research and industrial capacity also to produce vaccine as it is done in other parts of the world. So I think this is really on the agenda, and our institution in charge of health is actively working on that.
Okay.
Right,
Mr.
thank you.
President, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Members of the media, many thanks for